at UCSC for giving us this opportunity to talk to the students at UCSC. So it's always a pleasure for us to talk to the students. I personally have been a student some time back. I also studied at the same university, but those days it was not the UCSC. When I studied, it was the Department of Computer Science and Statistics. But nevertheless, it's the same degree which I have done, just like all of you. So it's great. It's great to be talking to you again. So I am going to do a small introduction, and then we'll move to the tech session. So let me share my screen. Okay, hope you can see my screen. So let me quickly. Yeah,
you can see it.
So let me quickly tell you about who we are, about our company, and then I'll be giving you. I'll be talking to you a little bit about what you can do to be more employable. I will take like 10 minutes to talk to you about that. So first of all, my name is Dilan Rajpaksha. I'm the managing director of VitalHub Innovations Lab. So we are a company who specialize in healthcare industry. We are a product company. We have number of products which are totally focused on the healthcare industry. So we have blockchain, mobile, and web-based applications. And this company is owned by a Canadian company, which is again called VitalHub. And we have 4 offices, 2 in Canada, 1 in UK, and of course 1 in Sri Lanka. So the Sri Lankan office started like almost 14 years ago. We have started operations in Sri Lanka almost 14 years ago. And altogether, we have 170 plus employees in all the offices. And in Sri Lanka office, we have 60 plus people working with us. And we have over 300 customers in UK, US, Canada, Middle East, and Australia. So these are the countries where our customers are from. So this is the something which might interest you, the technology stack which we use for our products. As I said, we have number of products being developed in our company. So because of that, we have different technologies. We do web-based applications as well as mobile applications. So these are the expertise we have in our company. And this is something which I always proud to say. We have won the healthcare category at the National Best Quality ICT Awards in Sri Lanka. Like we have won many awards in Canada for our products, but this is something which I'm proud of because these are local awards ceremony. So at this one we have won for the best product in healthcare category. So let me quickly show you some pictures about how our life is spent at VitalHub in our company. So apart from doing all the development work, it's a very fun place to be at. We had so many fun activities going on. Unfortunately, these days we can't do much because all of us are working from home. But I just thought of sharing these images with you because these are also memories for us right now because we can't do much of these activities. But though we are still trying to do some activities by meeting online and having the online activities, but definitely these are the fun times we had at our office. And hopefully, yeah, everyone is looking forward to go back to these fun days once the COVID situation is over, the office is open. We are hoping to go back to these fun days in the company. So that's a brief description, introduction about our company and what we do. And as I said, I would like to take 10 minutes of your time and talk to you about employability. I know this is a tech session, that the title is Tech Talk, but I thought of doing something non-technical as a start to explain you about the employability. So the employability is basically how much you are ready for the industry. So I'm like, it could be when I say industry, it's not just being in the IT industry, but even if some of you might be thinking of being an academic, right? So whether it is academic or whether you are going to work for someone else or whether you are going to do your own thing, whatever it is, how much you are ready for it. Like simply in simple terms, if someone is to offer you a job, how suitable you are for that job. So that is something which I believe should be having some sort of an idea. I'm pretty much sure you already know about this, but I thought of reminding you about how you should be ready for the industry. So let me quickly take you through a few points, which I'm sure most of you might be already doing. So the first and foremost, what we would like to tell you is learn the basics. So without the basics, you can't reach to the other levels. I'm like, of course, if you can see the image, the picture itself shows that this is the foundation, right? So without the foundation, without a strong foundation, you can't build a high rise, right? If you just do a fast solution here, then as you go along, it is very difficult for you to expand your building. The same with your career. I'm like, when you are in the university, that is the time where you set your foundation. So we always tell students to learn the basics. If you know the basics, then it's very easy to learn the rest of it, right? When let me take an example. Like if you are learning to drive, don't just focus on one vehicle. You try to learn how all the vehicles operate. You might be learning to drive only one vehicle, but have a basic idea how all the vehicles operate, right? What the engine does, how how the wheels spin, everything. If you know the idea, you will be a good driver. Otherwise, you can still drive, right? You know how you can get the driving license in Sri Lanka, right? It's very easy. But that's not right. If you want to be a good driver, basics. If you know how exactly the car behaves when you do something, then it's easy. Then it's in your control. Otherwise, you are not in control of the car when you're driving. So try to apply that example to what you're going to do, whether you are going to be a developer or a QA engineer or DevOps or whatever you plan to do. If you know the basics, then the rest is very much easy for you. And then master a skill. I'm like, when you again, let me take an example. When you come for an interview, when we have interviewed hundreds of students, when we interview, especially the students, there isn't much to talk with them because like everyone has done the same sort of a project, everyone has done the same subjects in the university. So there is nothing special to talk about in the during the interview, right? But if you have mastered something, right, some technology, or maybe if you have done a special project, so then you are different from another person, right? So you always try to differentiate yourself from the rest of the batch, right? Then you are unique, right? Then you have something special that will take you that will highlight you among the rest, and then definitely it will give you opportunities. So try to master a skill as well. I'm like, IT industry is a vast industry. You can't be studying everything it has, right? So that's why I said learn the basics and then try to master something. Then that will give you an advantage over the others. And the next one is, though you might be not looking for a job, always look for these job advertisements. Now, of course, there are many websites where the job advertisements are published. If you look at the job advertisements, you can see what the industry is looking for, right? Because sometimes you will see that, okay, I know Java, but knowing Java, is it good enough? What else do I need to know along with Java, right? Because Like when you go through these advertisements, you can see what exactly the companies are asking for, and also you can get a rough idea where the jobs are, in which technologies the jobs are, right? So that will give you a better idea, so you can prepare yourself. It's not that when you want to find a job you go to the job website, but what I suggest is always these days just go to these websites and go through the advertisements and figure out what the industry is looking for. Then you can be better prepared when you're actually going for a job, right? And the other thing is create a CV. Again, you are not looking for a job right now, but when you start writing your CV, you will figure out, actually, then you will be thinking, okay, what am I going to write here? Do I have anything else to write? I'm like, apart from your O-level results, A-level results, and maybe your university subjects, you have done the grades you have obtained. What else can I write there? What are the skills I have? What am I good at? So when you start asking these questions, when you try to write the CV, then you will figure out the gaps. You will know, okay, I have not still covered these areas. I might need to do this. I might need to do that. So likewise, you can get a better idea once you start writing your CV. So that's again something which you can try right now. And this is an interesting one. Have an elevator statement. So those of you don't know what the elevator statement is, this is like basically in startups, this is a very common concept. Basically what it says is when you meet someone in an elevator, you have maybe 1 minute maximum, right, in the elevator with that person. So that might be the only time you meet that person, and you have to tell about yourself within a minute, or maybe within 30 seconds, whatever, right? With a very short period, how can you market yourself, right? Because you have to sell yourself, right? If you're looking for a job, right, you have to brand yourself and you have to market yourself. So how can you tell about yourself within such a short time, right? So that is called the elevator statement. So try to come up with that. So try to come up with something which you can tell within 30 seconds or within a minute, which will highlight yourself and which will make the other person to think about you. Okay, this person might be really interesting. I might give him a chance to talk to me for a little bit more, right? So if you can impress the other person, then you are good, right? So this is the elevator statement. Another thing which you can do is, of course, these days you can't be traveling much, but if you find these career fairs or whatever, like places where you can meet employers, go for them. Again, you might be not looking for a job, but when you go for these career fairs, when you sit for an interview, when they start asking you all the questions, again, you might be thinking, okay, these are the things which they look for. This is how I need to face an interview. These are the things which I need to improve on. So all these experience you can get if you start attending places like this. And another one is, of course, get involved, right? I know you are doing all this stuff. You might be you. Of course, these days again you can't do much of these activities, but university is a good place, right? Apart from your studies, there are so many sports societies, etc. are there. Get involved with them, because you'll be learning so many other things about life, how to get things done, how to work as a team. All these experiences you get, because you can't limit yourself just for the technology, right? Because when you're in a real world project, right, when you're in a company, when you're in the industry, you have all these real life challenges. So this is a place when you get involved, you get these exposure. And also the other important thing is you get to meet people when you do all these things. And to meet people, I'm like, you can of course volunteer. There are so many volunteer activities which you can do, right? So maybe I don't know, where there are so many other clubs and societies, etc. there where you can volunteer your time to do something worthwhile. So something, so you might be helping someone else as well with your volunteer time, but at the same time you get a lot of exposure and experience when you do these things. And of course, networking is meeting people, get to know people. And again, when you meet a person like this, you need to have that elevator statement, right? They might ask you what you do, what are the projects you are involved with. So you have things to talk about now, right? When you have done volunteer activities, when you have when you have got involved with the projects, those are things you can talk when you network, right? And then these people will start noticing you, right? And they might say, okay, I have a job opportunity for you. A job opportunity for you. Why don't you come and meet me, right? So that's a very effective way of finding a job if you are interested. Like if you want to find a job, right? Not even job. I mean, like say if you are, some of you I know would be willing to start your own thing, right? Like a startup sort of a business you would like to do, right? Then of course networking will definitely help you to get to know people. And just like your CV, you can start creating your LinkedIn profile as well. So again, that's the way to market yourself. As I told you earlier, you have to sell yourself, right? So your advertisement is your LinkedIn profile. So try to build a LinkedIn profile. Start building it now. So gradually you can keep on adding things to your profile. And of course, the internship. I know now probably the next step for you would be to find to do the internship. So that's a place where you would get the experience. You would see how the industry works, right? You'll be working on projects, and like if in companies like us, you will get exposed to real life projects, right? Real projects, real customer projects. You'll be working with the customers, you'll be working with teams from other countries. So that's the experience you would get when you go for the internship. And the other thing is, like when you go for the internship, don't think of the technology, because I had an experience where one of the interns who joined us asked whether they can do AI projects or whether they can do blockchain projects or whatever, right? But it's very difficult to get involved in such projects in 6 months, right? But rather you would be more focusing on how to learn how to work in a company, learn how to work as a team, learn how to work in a commercial environment. So those are the objectives of the internship. And then of course, again, this is, I believe, something some of you might be doing, right? You can do the freelance work, right? So that's another way of getting some experience while you are studying. You can always do this sort of things. And another one is find a mentor, right? You can talk to maybe your seniors from the university, maybe your lecturers, right? Maybe someone who you would know who's in a leading position in the industry. So talk to them, get their advice. That will definitely help you to set the path for a proper career. And finally, last but not least, dream. You need to start dreaming, right? You need to have goals, you need to have objectives. Don't just do what others are doing, or don't just do what others tell you to do. Set your own path and have dreams. So definitely you can work towards succeeding your dreams. Okay, so that's a very quick description of like how you can be ready for the industry. So that's all I have to say today. I'm sure you are waiting for the tech session. So let me hand this over to Subhashini and Rajit. Again, they are also from the same university. So it's nice to have past students of the university again coming back to the university and talking to the students. So I'll hand over to Subhashini.
Thank you, Dila. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, good evening all. Today our topic is something important and popular at the same time. That's about RESTful APIs. Like Dylan said, we are really excited to share a little bit of industrial experiences we have gained over the years on how to look into a real world problem and how we build a software component upon it using RESTful APIs. You all from third year, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
I think, yeah, okay. So I think your next big challenge is to have industrial training. So we hope that this will be helpful to think beyond the theories, and I bet you all will have a good time and we'll learn something. So first, let me introduce myself. I'm Subhashini Vijayaratna, work for VitalHub Innovations Lab as an associate tech lead. I have been mainly working with Java related technologies and front-end frameworks. And yes, as Dylan said, I was also from UCSC once I was sitting there as a student and having good time. Not virtually like this, but yes, those good memories. And okay, let's move to the content today. First of all, to give a software solution, we need a requirement. That means a problem. So today we have taken a simple problem to resolve. Don't worry, the problem and the solution is really simple and easy and very understandable one. So first we will talk about the problem and the solution. Then later we will discuss a step by step how we can come to a proper architecture, like how we can do this in a traditional way. And then I will tell you why we need API there, and then what is an API. So after that, some types of APIs and architectural styles. So then we will quickly move to the REST API. That is our main topic today. So there you will learn about REST features, validations, error handling, documentation, what are the best practices. And these all things will be done using Springboot. Finally, you can earn reward also. I will get back to that in the end of the session. So I'm going to continue our topic. What do you see in this slide? In the left side, it is 2019, how a library look like. So unfortunately, this is 2021. They are closed, not only libraries, all the bookshops are closed. Other shops are also closed, but today our problem is about books. So I will be talking about only the books. As the people who are work with computers all day, we are used to find and read in the internet, right? So books are not a necessity anymore. But still, majority of the society wants book. Let's see who is this majority. The first thing, the students who are looking for books. Our local students are not get used to go through internet and find the books still, right? Few are doing, but not all of them. So they want books. And teachers, researchers, still they are looking for academic related books and articles. And especially parents who are looking for books. And schools are always suggesting textbooks, and there are some private authors good books. So, and my kind of people, the book lovers who are willingly waiting for the book fairs every year. So we miss that. And finally, publishers, authors, booksellers who wants to sell their book. So these are the people who are suffering from the problem we are talking. So I will tell you a little bit more about the problem. So because of the pandemic situation, we can't go to the bookshops, and some bookshops are still closed. And let's say that if we want to find a book, what we have to do? We have to contact them on direct contact or through social media or maybe web apps whatever the solution they have given, whatever the facility they have provided us. And still we have to go through every shop, right? We don't have a common solution. And again, we used to read ebooks and hear audiobooks, but there are still communities who are not familiar with audiobooks and ebooks. So they want books. And still there are people who don't want to read through the computer screen. Still, sometimes I also don't want to read PDFs and all from my phone because it's irritating, right? The fonts are small. So we love books. And again, we have international online book retail stores such as Amazon. So we can order books from there. But again, because of the COVID situation, it will take longer time than the previous. And again, it will not be a proper solution for the local small booksellers. So they can't sell all the books through Amazon. And let's say that there is a user who want the book as soon as possible from the nearest bookshop. So it is not still a solution. So we need something common and local solution, right? So this is our problem, and we are going to solve it using a software solution. So it's like a virtual book fair, else let's say a book hub like VitalHub. So what we are going to do is we are going to collect all the book related information into one place, and then our community can search and get their books through our software solution. So as I said, it's like a shopping cart. It's easy to understand, not a big deal. So let's see what we can do through this software solution. So here I have mentioned the basic functionalities we can do. Here we have our software application in the middle and the book readers in the left, and they can search books and buy books through our software application. And again, the authors, publishers, booksellers, they can sell their books through the software application. So it is easy. And on this point onward, let's try to find the better software architecture for this. As the first step, we can try to implement this using the traditional way. Can anyone tell me what will be the traditional way, or what is the first solution come to your mind? Just if you don't want to speak, you can type in the chat also. What do you think? Anyone? Okay, I go to one chat. Web, okay. Okay, it's a web. And we can develop this as a web application. Okay. Actually, this is the most commonly used approach and simplest one, a web application. Here we have the web server, our application is deployed. So the users can access this web application using a public URL through their web browser. And those users can do the functionalities we have mentioned in the last slide and request the services. So once the services request reach to the web application, that request will be processed here and will send the response back to the browser. So you already know this, right? And if I tell you more about web application, I have divided this web application into 3 main layers. It's like presentation layer for user interfaces. This will consist with HTML, JavaScript, and some styling stuff, and the service layer, which holds the logic behind the business. So business logic will be in service layer, and the Java layer for database operations. So this is a good solution as the first step in our thinking. So we are going to find the architecture for the solution. So first thinking is the traditional way development, a web app. Okay, no problem. Solution work really well. There are a large number of web apps running in the present world. So a good solution. Here we have our app which runs on browser. So I took a simple problem, right? So everyone have, like, all the community has this problem. So we will have a competitors. That means we will have some other software solutions from other companies or some other competitors. So what if they have a mobile app and we don't? And another reason for this is, let's say that there are people, we are the people who are involved in computers. But in the normal people, usually they don't use computers. They just have few smart devices, such as only a smartphone maybe, or a iPad or a tab. Okay, so still they can use the smart devices browser and go to the web app URL, and we can access that. But it is like not comfortable and not user friendly, right? And mobile apps are getting popular much more, and we need a mobile app. And sometimes now we say web apps are the traditional way of development, but in the future that might not be the traditional way anymore. We don't know yet. So we need a mobile app also. And let's say that we need to access data separately, not in the website, our web app, not through our mobile app, but we need to access our data separately. Like we are giving data for this third parties. Let's say that the bookseller from our software need to create a report, their own, and they need to give our data to some news website or something for advertising. So we need to access data separately. So this is another solution. Now we have think lot. Like first we thought about a web app, and now our requirements been enhanced. So we need mobile app, web app, and also we need data separately. So what will be the architectures for these software solutions? You see, for the mobile app, we have a separate presentation layer. It will be developed with some mobile technologies. And for the web app, we have again separate web presentation layer. And for the processing data, we don't know. It could depend with the third parties. But the common thing is we have same service layer and DAO layer. So our first thinking, the web app, it's not going to work anymore, because we usually when we develop a web app with in the traditional way, what we are doing is we have one code base. We developed it as one project. That means all layers are attached together. But for this, for our solution, we can't do that. We need a separate presentation layer and service layer and DAO layer together separately. Maybe we need to separate that one also, but in this case, let's assume that our DAO layer and service layer are together, and we need the presentation layer separately. So keep in mind, when we are trying to give a software solution, thinking about this architecture is really good thing and really necessity, because future of our product, future of our solution, and well-being of our solution will be depending on it. Because let's say that we develop this as actually where in the real world, we develop this as a web app. And again, if once we need to have the mobile app, what will happen? Maybe we have to restructure our code, or maybe we have to rewrite our code. So that will be costly. So when it comes to industry, the thinking about the architecture is really important. So this is where APIs plays a huge role. You may already know about APIs. APIs are everywhere. Like if you work with some technologies or some projects or anything, any languages also, the APIs are playing behind the scene every time. It's like API-centric world. And if you see the numbers, this is from Postman Analytics, and it's related to 2019. And you see the API request getting per year, per month, per day, and also per second. So it's huge. And if I say you what is API stands for, it's Application Programming Interface. It works as a middleman or an interface to allow developers to build interaction between two software components. If I tell you, it's like this is a separate component, this will be a separate component, and also this could be another separate software component. So API will help to interact between these two components. That's how it looks like. Okay. If you have any questions, you can ask, or if you have else, if you can type in the chat also. And here is our new diagram. Now we don't have presentation layer attached to our application. Now you see service layer, Java layer, and we have another new layer called control layer. This control layer decides and controls what inside. Simply control layer to decide what facilities are given in the API. In our case, like book search, book sell, book buy, book add, something like this. And you see that now we can have separate presentation layers in different devices with different technologies. So now it's kind of flexible, right? And I found a really good, maybe you already know, really good website. I think you can't see that. Can you see the browser? No, right?
Not yet, Subhash.
Okay, let me share it. Now can you see?
Yeah, can see now.
Okay, so this is called anyapi.com. So here they have collected kind of large number of API developed all over the world, including like popular technologies. Here we have a lot of categories, and I will click on one. Let's go to the Instagram. Okay, this is the API documentation given by Instagram according to this anyapi.com website. And here we can search users, user search. I go inside the get. This is kind of a one endpoint, like one resource, like if you say like one method. So from this, from get, we can have the result as this. You see, sorry. We can see we can take the user full name, user ID, URL to user profile, and there will be some authentication to our security methods to get these details, but Instagram is giving them, like I said, if I get back to slides, like I said, in here, we can't see it right. In here, we give our data to third parties in the book hub. So same as Instagram has given their data to public through the API. So when we come to the API architecture, we also can give the data to public or the parties we want. Okay. So that's what is the advantage when we are using APIs. That's all about anyapi.com. And okay, API types. This is kind of few theories. I know sometimes theories are boring, but really, really important. So there are few API types, but we will be mainly focusing on web APIs today because we are going to talk about REST APIs. They are like web service APIs. Web API means when API is accessed through HTTP protocols, we call them web APIs. Else, same as web service API. And under that, we can talk about a few categories such as Open API. Open API is public API, which can be accessed publicly. That we saw it in the anyapi.com. So they are public. So these kind of API we call public, and security methods will be only few user registration, user authentication, or only API keys we want. And when the second one is internal API. This is what we are using. As in the slide said, commonly used in companies. If I get an example from our company, we have a mobile app and also the web app, which share the same backend. So what we have done is we have created an internal API which share among the mobile team and also the web app team. So this is where we talk about internal API. Actually, as we said, commonly used in a lot of companies all over the world. And the next one is partner APIs. Technically, they are similar to public APIs, but there will be more security methods like partner APIs means API developer company and also the API user company will agree to some gateways and some security methods, and they share the APIs, something like this, like kind of a public API, but there are more security methods around them. And composite APIs, it's like usually they commonly used in microservices, and because microservices are like small function, we divide small functionalities into services. So usually we need to collect few APIs into another one. Like let's say that if you want to use third-party API in your API and a few third-party APIs in your API. So it's a collection of API. That's what composite API means. And this is something like, I didn't explain much, but keep in mind what are they, because we need to know the types of API to develop. Like let's say that if you just want an internal API, you don't need a public API. So you need to know the difference between that, right? So that's why I talk about them. And next one is API architectural styles. First one is SOAP. Actually, this has been developed and introduced before REST. It stands for Simple Object Access Protocol. I think you have already learned about them. I can remember we also learned about them. And the next one is REST. REST also learned, but we will cover it with the industrial problem and how to solve it using REST. That's what the difference is. And REST means representational state transfer. And we will discuss them deeply in the next few slides. And the next architectural style is GraphQL. This is kind of similar to REST, but different because we use query language over there. And the RPC is remote procedure call. I can remember I learned it through the middleware, but we are not going to talk about them here. And the last one is messaging. Messaging means the same thing we can do, communicate between two components using message queues and interface engines. So that's it is. And Actually, this is all about, now we talk about a problem and a solution. And we came through first step, traditional way, and we understood why we don't need that and why we need something else. So we came to use APIs. And when it comes to API, we talk about web services API. And from the architectural styles of API, there are few here. And today we are going to solve our problem using REST. It's kind of a widely used, a good solution right now. So let's see how we can solve our problem using REST. And Gajit will be go through the RESTful API implementation and stuff. So Gajit, over to you. Thank you. If you have any questions regarding the slides we have discussed so far. Okay, so far so good. Okay, thank you. Gajit, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Subhashini. Good evening, everyone. So let me share my screen. Then you guys can see my screen, right?
Yes, yes.
Yes,
Okay.
we can see it.
Thanks again, Subhashini. Let me introduce myself. I am Rajit, and I'm working as a tech lead at VitalHub. I'm also proud to say I also studied at UCSC. I was at 9 batch. I'm really excited to you to how we are going to develop a solution as a REST. So I think you have a basic understand why we are need REST and why we are going to make our BookHub API as a REST, right? Before going to depth, I will talk about core principle of REST. REST actually stands for representational state transfer. It exposes information about your resources, about your application. REST architecture style, and it was defined by Roy Fielding. He's one of author of HTTP principle as well. And REST defines set of constraints and few principles how to develop your solution as a REST, right? You already know that now. What is web service? What is web service API? That is hosted in web, right? Actually, web service is using HTTP protocol. So a web service written by applying REST architectural concept is called RESTful web service, right? Now let's understand what are the client and resource in the REST concept. Client is a person who use this API. When you come to our BookHub API, the clients are developers. Now we are going to develop our REST API as a backend, right? So the users are front-end developers. Now think what is resource? Resource is a object that are in your application. Now let's define our resources in our BookHub API. Can someone raise and define few resources? I think you can use our chat. Okay, books, mainly books, right? I think I have, right? Yeah, books, authors, publishers, bookshops. Those are the main resource in our BookHub API, right? REST API exchange the information between the server and client using HTTP protocol. HTTP is a way to transfer the hypertext between client and server. Hypertext could be a JSON, XML, or HTML, right? So most REST API use the JSON. JSON is a JavaScript object notation. Actually, you already know about that. So it's contain the key value pairs, right? Let me bring up my browser. I think you can see my browser, right?
Yes, can see.
You can see.
Okay. This is public REST API. It's generate the random JSON with containing the random name, right? If you press enter, it will generate a random name with containing a few fields, right? This is the JSON. This is the JSON structure, right? I will press F12 and go to your network tab. And if you click again, you can see here the network, how the request and response behave, right? In here, you can see the what is the request URL, what is the request method. We are going to talk about this one in detail our next slides, and what is the status code, right? And in the response header, you have the content type, that is the type of JSON, right? Let me move again my slide. You all like comics, right? Think as a book lover. Now we are going to develop our VitalHub API. So as a book lover, you need to read Amazing Spider-Man, right? Now you need to search the places where that book can be bought, right? Think if this book search functionality or feature implemented as a web app, I think Subhashini described that. So if you go to the web app, you can see that the URL would be like this. Say, for example, bookhub.lk, and the method would be get book. We need to get books, and by name, this is the parameter we are going to pass, right? This is more likely action based, right? Actually, you familiar with these. So now, when it comes to the REST, its URL are defined by resources. Actually, now you know about what is resource, right? According to our example, you can see that the books resource in there, right? In the URL contain that book resource, right? So these URL called endpoint, right? This is a one endpoint of our VitalHub API, right? Now let's implement our first endpoint using Bootstrap, right? Springboot, right? So this is, I think this is a good point, starting point for you guys to learn Spring and Spring MVC. What is the stuff of doing this, right? Let me bring up my browser. I am going to start our project using Springboot, right? Springboot help you to start a Maven project using adding configuration and this stuff. You can do it as a starter project first, right? I would center for to explain this one. You can select Maven project here. And the language we are going to implement this Java, right? Actually, you are all familiar with Java. That's why we are using Java. And Springboot version, I'm going to use 2.5.2. And group, you can use whatever. I would say GitHub. And the description, I would say text session. Right? So packaging would be a jar. So you can use WoW. So we are going to use jar, right? This is the most important part, right? You need to add dependencies. Dependency means that we need to add this project, right? I think Subhashini explained that what is API. We need to add those API in here, right? I'm going to add web. So we need, since this is a small project, I am going to add only web. So after you complete this configuration, you can generate your CTRL here. And I'm going to click it. And you can see it will generate your starter project and download it your computer, right? Now you need to import this project as a Maven project. So I am going to use Spring tool suite. This is a specific tool for Spring development. So I think you will learn this kind of tools, and you can use Eclipse or IntelliJ. So I'm going to use this tool. Now I'm going to import this our project as a Maven project, right? I'm going to browse my project. I have already downloaded project here. Right? Now we have imported our starter project. I think we have many questions on this, so we will go after the session. So this is our main application, right? We can run our Maven project from this class, right? Now think when you develop a web application, you need to have a class that exchange the request and response. That is called controller, right? When it's come to the REST, we need to define a REST controller, right? Now we are going to define our REST controller here. I'm going to add my class. We are going to create our book controller, right? And here you can see, create our package. And this is, I'm going to create one. So now class is created, but this class works as a REST controller, right? So in order to do that, you can create annotation. I think this could be a new one for you guys, but you will learn these ones. I can select REST controller. This is a Spring annotation. You can make this class as a REST controller, right? Now we did our REST controller. Now I will move our slide again. This is our endpoint, right? In our endpoint, we have a few common things, right? This is our resource, and this is our request param, right? I'm going to add my common thing as a request mapping in our class, right? I'm going to add request mapping. And I would map my URL into this class, right? I would say API/books, right? This would be a command for this book control because there are few endpoints are going to be we can create. So I will show it. Now we need to have a method to map this to map the request coming from, right? Now I'm going to add that method. So in order to that, I will, before that, I will go in this URL. So this URL get the book detail, right? So that's mean this is get request. I think you are familiar with get and post methods. So this is get request, right? Now I'm going to add get map in here, right? Now you have to define our method. Now think what would be the return type. You know, in method you need to have a return type, right? When it comes to REST, it's going to be a DTO. DTO means that data transfer object. That means it does not contain any logics. It contains only getters and setters, and it exposes your information of your application, right? So that's going to be a book DTO and get our book by name, right? So inside that, we need to pass our request param, right? I'm going to add request param, string, and book name, right? Now we have defined a method that map to our URL, right? So actually, due to the time limit, I will copy few codes into this project. I will explain on that. I'm going to copy these ones. Now I will go to my DTO classes. Here our DTO class, right? You can see a book can have these properties, right? ISBN number, name, publish date, that contains the bookshop we can buy, right? This is the bookshop DTO. So I will show it. This is the, I just add ID and location, right? These are the DTO. The JSON will generate from these classes. Now I'm going to go my controller and I just import our DTO, and you need to call our service class. Actually, this is, I already written that to get the books. So I will auto-wire this class. Auto-wire means that, you know, Spring, we have a dependency injection, right? We can inject the class to another class, right? I will inject my service class. Right? Now we have done auto-wire thing. Now I will call the get by book name inside the service class and passing our parameter, right? And you need to have the return type, return, right? Now we have completed our endpoint, right? This is the endpoint in REST, right? Now, if you go to the application, or you can build this application as a Maven build, Maven install, and I'm not going to do that. I already did that. So if I go to that, it will take a little bit time. So I will run this application as a Java application. You can see the logs. It will generate a log here, right? This is a Springboot log. And inside here, you can see that inside the Tomcat is started at port, default port 8080, right? Now we can go our browser and check the URL, right? I'm going to the browser. And this is our URL, right? I'm going to enter. Now you can see the response. Response is a JSON, right? If you go to the F12, now you can familiar this one, right? You can network it. If I go enter, press enter, and if you go to the preview, you can see the proper format in the JSON, right? This is we can't read actually. You can read here. You can see that the location we can get this book, right? We have like a location, right? If you need a good format for other than this, you can use Postman. That's actually a API testing tool. I would add going to that tool. This is the tool that we can do any REST call in this tool, right? It's a Postman. I would copy my URL, and I'm going to get that request, right? Here you can see the proper format, right? This is the JSON, right? You can see headers as well, right? Now let's move our slide again. Now we have developed one endpoint, right? Now BookHub API. What are the other endpoint? What are the URL you can use? You can create, right? We need to actually add the book, right? You can add the book using post, right? You already know what is the post. You can do a post request for creating a book. That is the HTTP method you can use. We already use get method, and for the creation you can use post. Put means that if you need to update a book, say for example, you need to update a complete information of your book, right? You can use put HTTP method, right? And if you need a update a specific attribute, something like a dashboard, publish date, name. So then you can use patch HTTP method. And if you need to delete the book, you can use delete HTTP method, right? These are the basic HTTP method that we have. There are few, so you can learn those things after this session, I think. Now I'm going to show our complete, not the complete one, the basic structure of book API. Don't think about this fancy HTML. I will explain that. When you go to the book controller, I explained that we have few HTTP method, right? These are the HTTP method we have. So we already created one endpoint. This is the one, and you will learn how to do it later. And these are the other endpoint. I will add one book here. You can just pass your book DTO, right? I will add one location. And I would add the ISBN number, and the book name is right. Now I'm going to execute this endpoint, then you can see what happened. Here you can see that it is added, right? I will explain what is this code, right? So then you can, I think we will search by name for this. I'm going to try out our VitalHub search and explain. So I think here we go, right? We have that added one. We just added this one, this book, and it's searched by name, right? These are the few things that related to the REST implementation. And now I move to my slide again. Before moving to the slide, let's think, if you are going to, as a user, you will search the book that not exists in the system. Then what will happen? Let's see what will happen in our endpoint, right? This is our endpoint, just created. I am going to just type that is not exist, right? That name, right? If I press this, that will generate a common error, right? This is not a good point for REST API. When you do the REST API, you need to handle this kind of scenario, right? In order to do that, you need to have a status code. You need to have a separate status code for these kind of errors, right? So HTTP define these standard state code that can be used to convey the result of client request, right? These status code are divided into 5 categories, right? These are the one categories that call information. It's starting from 100, and success is actually you already seen that we have the 200 success status code, right? So that is starting from 200, and 300 is redirection for the redirection status code, and 400 this is the codes that we need to use for the handling client errors, right? So 500 means that server errors. This is what we get earlier when we type the name that's not exist, right? It's a 500. it's a default 500 code. Now let's see how we are going to use this status code in our VitalHub API. This one, I will go to my book controller. This is complete book controller. In your add operation, this is a post mapping. You can see that, sorry, not that one, the get mapping, the search book, we have the two different status code. This is the status code, that 200, right? When the book is searched, it will give the 200. When it is not found, then you can choose 404, right? This is the kind of using a status code. Actually, we need this status code correctly. Now I have listed few codes here. You can see you already know that now 200 is the everything went good, right? You can use this one. And for book creation, you can use 204, right? For 204 means that if you do a put request and it's not giving any return data, that's giving 204. 400 means that's a bad request. If you type any malform request, malform JSON, that will give a 400. So these kind of status you can use for the REST API. And 404, actually we already used that. That's for the client error handling, right? We have we have so many status code. I think Subhashini will show you those status code. Now we have created our few endpoint for our VitalHub API, right? But how you deliver this endpoint to a client? You means if you develop this REST API as a backend, then how you deliver this endpoint to other front-end developers? So you need to have a documentation, right? So that's why API documentation needs come, right? So for the API documentation, mostly use Swagger. It's a auto-generate part. Actually, you already seen that UI. That is Swagger UI. So it has a several configuration you can do it your Springboot project. I will show it how to do it, and you can use Postman as well. That's not getting updated now. Anyway, you can use for the API testing. I already showed that. So I will move to our code. Right. In your form XML, I think most few guys you know what is form XML. This is we are defining the dependencies, right? In dependency, you can add that Swagger dependency here. After that, you can configure the Swagger in your project. So you can just add this annotation. It will generate the auto-generation HTML that contains the endpoint details. I think you already seen that, right? If you need a custom configuration, you can use docket object that contains the few custom configuration. That has I already had few custom configuration here. You can see that I change our BookHub API name, right, and version. So if you go to the Swagger UI documentation, this is the Swagger UI documentation, right? You can have a proper documentation here, and you can even test your endpoint as well. That is why this is most popular, because the document has the two things. We can the document and you can test as well, right? Now, generally, not the restaurant, you need to validate the inputs, right? User can type anything, right? When it's come to the REST, end users can pass any inputs, right? You need to validate those things in REST. So in order to do that, you can use Springboot validation. This is kind of a little bit complicated, but you can understand what we are going to do. So I will show how to do it. In your DTO class, I think you already know what is DTO, right? In your DTO class, you can validate your input. That means if you need, say for example, you need to validate your book name, if not exist, right? Book name is required when you create the book, right? So you can do it from adding constraints. That means we have predefined constraint given by the Spring. So you can define these constraint at the DTO classes. So for example, you have an email. I think if you do it separately, you need to think what should be the content, and email should be like this. Those kind of we don't need to worry about that, right? Just we can add email constraint, then we can validate that. That's why we are using this. So if you add that constraint, after that you can validate your class, the DTO, in your create method. You can see that we have used validated string annotation here. You will learn these ones when you go to the Spring tutorials, and right, you can validate your DTO class like this. And now I will show how it's work. I will add. I'm going to execute this one. I'm going to add the book without a name. Right? Let's see what happened. It says book name is required. Right? I think when you develop a web app, you did it in the front end, right? So this kind of scenario we need to handle in REST API as well, right? So you can use Spring validation for that. So when you use Spring validation, there are a few benefits as well. Actually, no need for separate validation configuration. I showed that we don't need to worry about the validation, how we are going to do the validation in each attributes, right? And we can directly define the constraint on domain models. That means the DTO classes. These are few benefits we can use in our Spring validation when you use the Spring validation, right? This is the basic things in REST when you develop or when you implement a project as a REST, right? So for the reference, I have listed few learning materials you can refer after this slide has been shared, or you can just take a screenshot here. And for the Java and .NET, I have listed here. You can refer those tutorials and guideline, and you can do more things this, right? So this is Java Brain. This is a good starting point for us, I think. Spring has a good guideline as well. And I listed another one. And for the .NET guys, I listed one of good guideline for REST. So we have other guideline for the other guideline as well. We will send those one as well. So now we learn how the REST is implemented, and what is REST and what is the endpoint, what are the resources. So now we are going to talk about what are the best practices for REST. Actually, that's a more important for the REST. So over to Subhashini, and thank you. If you have a question, you can ask. Okay. I think.
Yes, students, if you have any question, please ask from now.
Okay. Over to you, Subhashini. Let's discuss about best practices.
Kajik, there's a question. Do you want to answer it now or at the end of the session? There's a question in the chat.
Yeah, I saw that. I will explain it after the session.
Okay, right. At the end of the session, right? Okay. Subhashini, you can continue.
Okay. Nitarshana or Nitarshana has been answered my question. The question was, what is the first software solution we will be giving to our problem? So she or he has mentioned a mobile app. So good thinking, and thank you for the answer. I didn't see that in that moment. Okay, let's move to the best practices. Now you have known what is RESTful API and how to do a simple implementation, right? So I will quickly go through few common best practices we need to know when a web API or a RESTful API is implemented. Actually, I will not go through the code by implementing the practices. Just remember these points because these things will be really helpful when you want to implement a RESTful API on your own one day. I think nearest future, because you are going to be in the industry. So Okay, the first one, accept and respond with JSON. JSON is the standard which used in most network technologies for transferring data nowadays. Actually, JSON is the most popular and most commonly used data transferring type right now. There are a few other types, but this has a really good background support. For an example, JavaScript has encode and inbuilt encode and decode methods for JSON, and some server-side technologies also. A lot of server-side technologies has libraries created for converting JSON, serializing and deserializing. So, for an example, Java has library called Jackson. You may already know. So it's if you don't know, it's really interesting. You should know about them. And actually, we can transfer data using some other types, as I mentioned, such as XML. But they don't right now. They don't have a really good background support, and sometimes the operations are really costly. So the best choice right now is, it could be changed in the future because technologies are always changing. But right now, JSON is the best option. So it is a best practice actually. And our second point, use nouns in endpoints file. As Gajit mentioned and implemented, we wrote some URLs for our resources, right? Endpoint means resources. What we are doing in the URL is we don't put verbs in our URL because we already have nouns in HTTP methods, request method. Get, you already learned. Get, post, put, patch, delete. These are the mostly used one. So get for getting something, and post for creating, put and patch for updating, and delete for deletion. So in the URL, we have this request method, right? So it says what we are doing. So we don't need some other verbs in our URL. In another point, because we need this standard, let's say that let's think that for a moment, we allow developers to have verbs in our URL. What will happen? Some developers like verbs such as get. So they put it as get books, get author, get shop, something like this. But some other developers they use retrieve. So retrieve book. So there is no common thing, right? So for good code quality also, choosing nouns over verbs is really helpful. So this is also a good best practice. And the third one, name collection with plural. Actually, this one is related to the second one. You already know that we select nouns over verbs when it comes to collection. Like if you are work with a list or multiple entities in your resource or in your endpoint, you need to put that names with plural. Okay, that is simple thing. And the next one is logical nesting on endpoints. What's that mean is we should group associated informations together. Like whatever your database table structure or whatever your relationships in between the database table, it doesn't matter. It's a separate layer, DAO layer, and this is control layer. So what I want to say is we don't mirror what we have in the database to the control layer. So we have control logic separately. For an example, if we take our book hub, we are going to, so we talk about basic functionalities such as adding book, selling book, buy book. Other than that, we are going to add a new feature, review. So what's that mean? A user can add reviews for books and other users can see those reviews. So this review functionality or review resource is related to book, right? So we should group them together. So it's like API version 1, book, and then review. So we have grouped them together. Actually, one advantage of this best practice is, let's say that if you are going to mirror your, if you give same database relationship structure to your control layer. Like if you have a book table, you are going to give books. And if you have a review table, you are going to give review. It's like giving same database structure details to your controller side. So, so this could be unnecessary information for the attackers also. So keep in mind, this is a really good practice to know. And the next one is handling errors and use status codes. So you already saw how we handle errors and how we use status codes. Actually, we all know, like, error handling plays a huge role in any type of software component, whether it is a RESTful API or a web app or a desktop application or anything else. Error handling is something really important. So, but when it comes to APIs, it's kind of a little bit different, because we don't give our own errors. Let's say that if we develop a web app, we can give our own errors. But here we have a standard. We use status codes for error handling. Not only error handling, for successful things also we have status codes, because APIs are something commonly used within front-end developers, API developers. So we need a standard way, right? So for error codes, the image is not much clear, but it's 400, 401, 402. There are lists, and I have a good article which has all the status codes listed. As Gajit mentioned, there are success codes and there are client errors. You can select what you want to send. For an example, you see the 200 and 201, 201. So if you're creating something, you can use both. No, it doesn't matter. It will not give any errors. But the most suitable one to use is 201. It's for created. Okay. So these type of thing we need to be careful when we are developing APIs. And let me go back to my slides. So our next practice is good security practices. Like most communication between client and server should be private, because we transfer only secure information, right? So therefore, using a good security method such as SSL, TLS, or HTTPS, we need to learn them separately, security. Actually, this is a must, because people should not be access more information than they requested. That's why we need to have good security practices. Maybe you will have user roles or user groups or some organization categories or users created, or the security methods I have mentioned, SSL, TLS, or HTTPS. And having these good security practices is a must for a good API. And sorry. Next one, versioning the API. Actually, versioning is something, a huge topic to talk about when it comes to industry. Actually, it's something you can gain from the industry version. So why we need versions? Like we should have different versions of API, because we make changes to the software that may break your existing client. Let's take our solution, the Book Hub. Okay, let's say that in the first phase, in the first step we have discussed, we have developed with the basic functionalities such as adding books, sell books, and buy books. So I think that we have all developed our solution right now, and we have released them to the customers. So users are using them. That is our version 1. So now we are going to add a new feature. As we discussed before, we are going to add reviewing the books. So this is our new feature. So in our second phase, users can add reviews and other users can see reviews. So in this case, we have two options. If we are not going to versioning, what we can do is we can release the new feature to all the users. But what will happen? We have to force them to use our new feature because we have already released, and we will not gain any advantage from that feature. Okay, so or else maybe it will break down the customer system. And that's why we need a version 2, because the users who want to stay with the version 1 and who don't want to review in the books, they can stay with the version 1. And if there are customers who want to go with the version 2, they will have our shiny feature reviewing the books. Okay, so this is what the advantage of versioning. So here you can see the book controller. I have attached an image. Here, the first endpoint or the first resource, get API. This is how we do the version. We have version 1 books. So in this phase, as we discussed, we will have book search and the basic functionalities. When we release the version 2, we will have another endpoint called API version 2 books. Okay, this is our versioning work. Actually, it could be version 2 or it could be version 1.1 or something. That is about versioning that should be discussed separately. And the next one, filtering, sorting, and pagination. The databases behind a REST API actually could be really large sometimes. And so another sometimes this much of data we don't need to return all at once. You know that when it comes to Google search, we search something and we get a page with only few results, 20 to 30 results. And we have large number of pages. So what will happen if we get all the data at the same time? It will be really slower, right? So making your solution faster, making your API faster, pagination is very important. And filtering also. Filtering will also, we type something in the Google, right? It's kind of a filtering. So in our API, we had, when we search the books, we search by name. So it's a filter. And sorting also, you know about sorting. Getting sorted things is really important a lot of times. So this is a very good practice to do. And the last one is cache data. Actually, this is kind of a technology we can put into our software products. And in this case, we need to think smart, where to apply this caching. The advantage of this caching is we can add caching to return data from the local memory cache instead of querying our data from the database all the time, because querying database will be costly more than getting from the caching. But the disadvantage of using caching is, as I said, we need to think carefully where to apply. If you apply this to a wrong place, such as for the data always getting updated, maybe you will receive some older data more than the latest one. So it could be a problem. So a lot of times if you go to the production and what is there is you are getting older data because you have put the caching over there. So still this is a good practice, but we need to know where to apply and where not to apply. Okay. So this is all about best practices. I didn't implement them because it will depend on what you are doing. But remember, keep this in mind. It will be really helpful. And okay, I have 2 questions to ask from you. The first one, does REST hold the monarchical region? Oh, what a question. You can't understand, right? So that means, does REST, is RESTful API top technology to use in this solution? Or like communication between 2 software components? Or will REST be dying in the nearest future? I will explain it a little bit. I am asking, is REST the top 1 technology to use when it comes to interact between software components, or it is the last one to use? What do you think? Just to answer, yes or no. You can type in the chat. Anyone? What do you think? If I repeat my question, I'm asking, is REST the top 1 architecture to use when it comes to API building, or is that the last one? Any answers? No? Okay. Okay. Answers for both questions are no, because when it comes to software ecosystem, there is not a single winner. There will be many winners depending on the customer requirement, like what we decide to use in our software. It's like democracy, and clients, the developers, or the architecture decide who will represent them. So if you could remember, I mentioned few architectures. So as I said, they can exist in the same software solution without any errors and very peacefully. So they are not replacing any of them. They are just alternatives. So neither REST will be dying, or neither it's a top 1 solution. So for an example, if you decide to use RESTful APIs in your solution, maybe you need few teams to maintain your API. You need the API development team, and to maintain your presentation layers such as mobile app, you need a mobile team. And again, for the web app, you need a web app team, development team. So in this case, you need to think carefully, like it is worth doing or not. So actually, we wanted to know about how we apply RESTful APIs for a problem. So, but still, you like architecture. So one day, designers should understand what is the best architecture for your solution, depending on the cost you can take, or the knowledge you have in your house. So those type of things. Okay, we have gradually come to the end of the session, and we have a small challenge. And as I said, you will get a valuable reward also. And yes, everything negative, pressure, or challenge is an opportunity to rise. We lost this amazing person last year, right? So, however, what he said is so true. Every little thing we face in our life should be taken as a challenge, because we can learn from them. This is not going to be a big challenge to talk about as the quotes, but I'm just mentioning. And again, I'm reminding you will receive rewards, and whatever the rewards is, you can learn something. Okay. And it's not a big thing. We just need an improvement to our book hub. So improvement is for the search criteria. So our first endpoint, our resource is getting books, right? So right now we can get books only by searching the name. So what you need to do is you need to develop, improve this resource, or you think I'm not going to tell anything. We need to develop search criteria of our book hub to have the publisher, like where we can get this book. So search criteria will have from filtering from the name and also the publisher. So you need to add publisher to our search criteria. And again, it's like adding publisher to our solution newly. So you need to have publisher controller, like book controller. And again, you may develop get, post, put and delete for publisher controller. And we have uploaded our code, the one Gajit implemented during the session. So actually I forgot to send you the links. Let me send you. Okay. We have committed our code to the GitHub, so you can clone it, book hub service. What you need to do is don't get it from the main and don't commit to main. Just create your own branch using the naming convention as Tech Talk VH. Tech Talk _VH _ 2021 _ name. Let me send one also. TikTok _VH _ 2021 _ your name. Okay. All right. So create your own branch. TikTok _VH _ 21. Something like this. So create the branch, clone your branch. You can use GitHub desktop. Maybe you already have it. So clone it and do the development and push it to your branch. The first best solution will receive some gifts, valuable gifts. And even though you don't receive any gifts, this is a good chance to learn. If you are not familiar with REST API, you can look into that. If you are familiar with REST APIs, again, we have GitHub here. I know that you all are using GitHub. If you are familiar with desktop GitHub, try to use something else, third-party tool like Source3 or something. You can learn that. So that's why I said, take every little thing as a challenge. If this is not a challenge, try to put it as a challenge. And you can use IDE, Spring Toolsuit, Eclipse or IntelliJ or whatever you use. We used Spring Toolsuit. Actually, this could be easier, but you can use anything. If you haven't using Spring Toolsuit, try to use it. That will be a good learning point. And don't forget, you need to commit before 31st July. Okay. And okay. I think you had few questions. And if you have any other questions also, you can ask or type in the chat. It's questions, suggestions, comments, anything else. And Gajit, you can answer the questions.
Yeah, I think Danushka Gimman, right? So we can do the intercommunication between API, right? It's coming from the microservices. Actually, you know, I think Subhashini explained that what is microservice. We divide few kind of functionality into a service, right? So then we can communicate those API using REST template. That's a Spring template. So that's the answer for you. I think I already given that one. So thank you, Dhanushka Gimma. Do you have any question?
If you have any questions, you can ask us now. You can ask by unmuting your microphone, or maybe you can type in the chat box. I think we have another 5 minutes left. Or else you can contact us, Subhashin, if you can show them the way how they can contact us, our social media and email addresses are there. So if you need, you can contact us later on. You can contact us for anything else as well, not just what you have learned today. But if you need any other help, you can always contact us.
You can ask the question related that our improvement for task.
Okay, students, any questions?
As Subhashini said, if you can do this challenge and submit what you have done before 31st of this month, you have a chance of winning some exciting gifts from VitalHub. So that's an opportunity for you to learn something as well as win something as well. Okay, so if you don't have any more questions, we can wrap it up the session. So thank you very much, Nimali, Dr. Lasanthi, and the team from the UCSC for giving us this opportunity. And we hope to see you guys again soon in a session like this.
Okay, Dilan, also thank you so much for accepting today's sessions. Also, I think today's session was fully knowledge and very interesting. It gave the deep knowledge about the REST API and other things. So once again, thank you so much for accepting today's sessions. Also, dear students, thank you for joining with us. Also, have a good day all.
Thank you.
Thank you.